Nazma Muller joins us on set, and we're talking cannabis and marijuana. CARICOM is meeting a report, and they've been asked to consider a report. In that report, there are broad statements. A committee was set up, Rosemary Bell-Antwine, who I can say is very liberal and well-respected member of not only the academic community, but the legal community. And they've made several recommendations, including decriminalization, legalizing, and more education. Well, yesterday, the Secretary General said, not so fast. Maybe we have to consider the implications. The rest of the globe is going full speed ahead with the conversation, legalizing, and also recreational use. I don't know if we're ready to have all of that yet, but it seems as though we're nowhere closer to even saying, let's have a conversation. Nazma and her group, they have been on this issue, and they're hoping that this will be a turning point, that the Jamaica meeting will finally open a door. Nazma, good morning. How are you?
I'm very good, very irie. Thank you for having me.
Let's start. What is CARICOM being asked to consider?
CARICOM is being asked to consider to dismantle the prohibition of cannabis throughout CARICOM, all 15 member states, because after 3 years of visits and consultations to all the other member states except Trinidad and Tobago, the people have said, please, legalize marijuana. And so if CARICOM and the heads are going to do what they're paid to do, which is the business of the people, they must follow the instructions of the people and legalize.
There's a huge difference with decriminalization and legalization. Let's talk about the difference for those who may be unaware. Okay,
decriminalization means removing the criminal penalties for possession of cannabis. And you're not allowed to cultivate and sell or purchase, which puts you in a hot spot, because if I need to use it, where am I going to get it from? So in that sense, legalization is a better option, because then we begin to look at cannabis as a product, as a crop. And then you take away, just like tobacco or alcohol, you begin to look at it as a public health issue. Now, so, hold on, the decriminalization, I want to make the point, in Jamaica has not been so successful because, again, you're caught in a spot.
Right.
I can have it, but where am I going to get it from?
Now, I know in Jamaica they're actually considering patenting strands of marijuana for medical purposes, and they've been tapping into this aspect of their economy to diversify their income-generating base. But yesterday, the CARICOM General Secretary, Ern LaRocque, yesterday shut down any idea of trade in recreational marijuana regionally, citing international law that would preclude any move in that direction. So it seems as though CARICOM is already adopting a position or setting the tone for that discussion.
Well, they may, but again, the thing is, the people of CARICOM must understand these are 15 men, well, one woman, Mia Motley, who has also indicated that she is prepared to legalize medical marijuana, at least in Barbados. So we're in a similar position to the United States, where federally, CARICOM may say what it likes, but individually, the states should make their decision.
Trinidad and Tobago did not even participate
in the
consultation. So everyone else came forward, and I know that Dominica's having the conversation, Antigua's having the conversation, Jamaica's well advanced in this conversation, but we have no part in this conversation.
Well, that's because we have, well, I want to refer to the first interview and Mr. Daly and say that the Attorney General seems to have a headache on his hands, and I have a prescription for him. And the backlog of cases, we can fix that for you. I can't even believe, I'm glad to see that it's not the marijuana smokers on trial, but the judiciary itself. So that is to tell us we need to get our priorities in order as a country.
Now, even the Chief Justice about a year ago had the conversation. He said maybe it's time that legislators look to decriminalize. I would assume with the Chief Justice starting that conversation, it would advance. We are hands-off on this debate. Your group has been advocating for change. How are you going to get that happening?
Well, the thing is, we have different strategies. CARICOM was seen as one possible strategy, and it is not over yet. Ern LaRocque can say what he likes. His email address is ilaroque@caricom.org for anyone who's interested. Please send him an email and let him know how you feel. Even though TNT was not allowed, the people of Trinidad and Tobago were not allowed to express their opinion, you can still do so. I also want to give the people of Trinidad and Tobago a cell number. It's 683-6442. This is someone at the Ministry of Legal Affairs who is very interested to hear your opinion on cannabis. If you believe that it can help you, if you have cancer,
Who is so opposed to the use of, I mean, I know, and I think Urvashi's on the line, she'll join the conversation. I know that I personally have spoken with a number of terminally ill patients who use marijuana oils to ease their pain. Who is so opposed to this conversation? Where is the lobby group? Where's the anti-marijuana lobby coming from?
Keith Rowley.
That's a very strong statement to make.
But the evidence is there. If you look at Google, Rawi tried to start the conversation. He's saying, I am the Attorney General. I am seeing what this is doing to the country. It is not making sense to continue to prosecute young men for smoking marijuana. And you say to him publicly, you slap him down publicly and say, no, we're not going to have this conversation. Why? And the rest of the world is having it. So you have to ask yourself, I'm putting the blame squarely at Keith Rowley's feet, and as the Prime Minister, he needs to look at what is happening in the health, the clinical trials, the results that are coming out of Colorado, Uruguay, Israel, everywhere.
Israel is actually making serious advancements in terms of the medical marijuana industry. In fact, they've patented a number of drugs which I think will hit the stock exchange very soon. But what are you advocating for? Medical marijuana? Recreational marijuana? What are you advocating for?
I'm advocating for total legalization of cannabis throughout CARICOM, and that includes hemp, right? Because our economies right now, we are drowning, especially the small islands. People are dying who could be helped with this plant, with the CBD, the THC.
But the medical fraternity have not joined on this bandwagon locally. The local medical profession has not said we are going to lend our support to even consider this.
But they are secretly, and they're telling their patients, go ahead and try it because the traditional medicine is not helping you. Go ahead and try So I can't explain why. I know it's fair. It's a fair factor that is keeping everybody in check, and which the government is hoping will keep us all in check. But 9,700 people have signed a petition, and it's going to reach 10,000 very soon. And when those 10,000 people decide, we're going to stand up and say how we feel, then public pressure is going to come down very hard on the Minister of Health, the Minister of Legal Affairs, and the Prime Minister.
Speaking about public pressure, Urvashi Tewarie-Roopnerine has been monitoring this story. In fact, she did a special series about last year on marijuana use in our country. Fast forward to a couple of weeks ago, and she had a conversation about medical marijuana and the conversation. Where is it in Trinidad and Tobago? Urvashi joins us via phone at this time. Urvashi, good morning. How are you?
Thanks, Hema. I was trying to jump in earlier because I just wanted to point out that what I feel is the greatest injustice is that being done to the sick people, the infirm people who actually want to try it, and they view medicinal marijuana as the only alternative. And I can tell you for certain, since that story aired a few weeks ago, I've received countless calls from persons. They want to find out about the doctors. They want to find out about where they can obtain the oil, to use the oil. And I can tell you it is being sold, CBD oil is being sold by a pharmacy in Trinidad and Tobago. It's very expensive, but people are willing to try it. I have had mothers with children, with toddlers suffering from epilepsy. I have had cancer patients, people with arthritis, asthma. You name it, they're willing to try this drug, and to withhold it from them. Are we coming down to a conversation where we are denying them medical treatment?
From your discussions, and I know that you did the investigative piece, are people more open to the idea of medical marijuana versus, let's say, legalization?
To be quite honest with you, I don't see it as being much of a distinction. The persons who would have approached me are people who want to use it medicinally. I guess people who want to use it for recreational use, they're already using it for recreational use. And, Nazma could try it in here, but studies would show that in countries where marijuana is decriminalized or legalized, the number or proportion of the population which uses marijuana recreationally does not significantly increase. Therefore, amending the laws, studies would show, statistics would show, does not necessarily increase the population that uses it recreationally.
I think that, we talk about medicinal use for terminally ill patients, and I want to ask Nazma, the Psychiatrists Association of Trinidad and Tobago, they said that while the globe is going in a particular direction, there's still no sound evidence to distinguish or to understand the impact that marijuana may have on persons with underlying psychotic tendencies, and I'm using that term very loosely, but with dysfunctional brain behavior.
Well, the thing is,
so if you legalize it, you're now having you're basically exposing these people to further risks.
No, you're not, because go ahead.
No, Nazma, I'll ask Urvashi to.
The thing is, right now, people are buying weed on the streets and they don't know what's in it. If it is legalized, you can then go and purchase, like in a dispensary, labeled cannabis that tells you it has 10% THC.
Right.
These are the effects that are going to happen. So if you have underlying, and the thing about schizophrenia, which is usually the mental illness that is referred to with cannabis use, that is not a drug. That is not cannabis. That is the individual's genetic and perhaps their background, the trauma that they've been through, because that's another issue that we have to deal with in Trinidad, that child abuse.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people, grown people and teenagers who are walking around with PTSD because of their childhood, right? And they are self-medicating with cannabis to calm themselves, to relax, to deal with the anxiety. So that is a whole realm that the Psychiatric Association is not dealing with. In Jamaica, they have done studies. The head of the psychiatric department, Professor Wendell Abel, he's done studies and he says the number of people presenting with psychosis in UE hospital has not risen over the last 3 years. There's still 50% of people who are medicating themselves with cannabis, but they have mental illnesses that need to be addressed. It is not the cannabis that is per se causing these episodes. It is what they're dealing with psychologically, and they use the cannabis to calm themselves.
Urvashi, you have been you've been concentrating on this topic as a piece for an investigative piece. What has been your finding, basically? I know you wanted to add into that discussion about the possibility of us exacerbating existing or pre-existing medical conditions by just exposing people and saying, let's go buy the weed and not know what's in it.
That's exactly the point. I think what we're trying to say is that people who have underlying factors that incline them towards psychosis, marijuana may also be a factor to make them experience psychosis, but they have that underlying factor. So I guess that's where that is concerned. But the most disappointing thing about the whole thing, I mean, you would agree Trinidad&Tobago is unique, it's different. We have a different culture, we have a different perspective, religious, ethical, moral backgrounds. But the disappointing fact, I think, is that more or less Trinidad&Tobago declined that consultation. So we have never had that discussion. It's also extremely disappointing that there's very little research. We have had the Imperial College of Tropical Agriculture right here in Trinidad, and we don't do any marijuana research. We have not found properties. It's extremely disappointing that we are being left out of that bandwagon.
Why are we so afraid to touch the topic? And I think the world's perception on marijuana changed with the Sanjay Gupta documentary that was done so long ago. Why are we so afraid?
Well, we're not afraid, you know. There is a $1 billion marijuana industry in Trinidad. It's just illegal. And whoever is bringing in the tons of marijuana has everything locked down. That's what it is. It's not fair. It is corruption.
Don't you think that there may be a political factor? Parties may be a bit unwilling to broach the topic?
You know, in the end, I don't think any administration has touched it. Even the Passad-Bissessa administration did not list it on the agenda, because I don't know if it's the religious bodies, our misunderstanding, or just our cultural norms.
Well, that is exactly it. Professor Rosemary Bell-Anstein, who headed that CARICOM committee, she said, surprisingly, when they went to the Caribbean countries, every single other Caribbean country that they did the consultation in, she said that you would find religious bodies and they were not opposed to it, as well as you would find elderly persons coming in their wheelchairs, she said, with their walking sticks advocating for the use of marijuana, at least the decriminalization of it.
Nazma, you?
Once again, it's unfortunate that Trinidad&Tobago, with its unique population, we have the Hindu groups, the Islamic groups, we have many different ethnicities and cultures in Trinidad, that we did not have the conversation here.
Has the religious bodies, because there's an underlying perception, Nazma, that the religious bodies are vehemently opposed to this. Have we had that conversation with the legal fraternity? The CJ has put his views out there. Have we had it with the academics, with the religious bodies?
No, nobody has formally said, I want to hear what you have to say as a religious body. What are your objections? What are your criticisms? Because really and truly, people are not educating themselves about the research, and we need to stick to the facts and the data. There's no reason why UE should not do their own clinical trials and stop saying we don't know what effect it's going to have. Do the clinical trials. Right now, they are in fact a researcher from the veterinary science faculty would like to bring in some products from Jamaica to test on some rats and so on. So the interest is there among the faculty, but among the academics, but they're being held back. So we have to ask Mr. Rowley very pointedly, what is your problem?
In case you didn't know, the use of marijuana and cannabis is illegal. There are hundreds of men and women, young boys, who are in the jails of Trinidad and Tobago for a joint. The Chief Justice of Trinidad and Tobago last year, in his address to the opening of the Lower Tomb, said maybe it's time to start the conversation on decriminalization. The conversation has gone nowhere. CARICOM is meeting, and marijuana and cannabis is on the agenda. There's going to be no regional trade. Secretary General LaRocque made that clear. But Dominica, Antigua, Jamaica, a number of other countries are also having the conversation. We haven't started it yet. Nazma, what are your expectations for this meeting?
Well, I had hoped, I hadn't heard about Erwin LaRocque's statement that there would be no regional trade. But he can say what he likes. The Caribbean Court of Justice is there for a purpose. And we will be launching a lawsuit to them on behalf of a Jamaican producer of cannabis products regarding the Treaty of Chaguaramas and the prohibition of cannabis, because we should be allowed to trade intra-regionally a crop that is grown within the region. And so we will take the matter to the courts, because it seems like in Trinidad and Tobago, everything has to go to the courts, and they wonder why there's so many cases and why there's a backlog, right? Because we can't reason. We have to take it to the courts. So the lawyers are happy. From the lawyers' point of view, this thing could go on forever because they will always have work. So you understand the corruption within the judiciary, right? To keep poor people in a vice grip. But, I mean, numbers count. We will come out on Emancipation Day. So the Prime Minister has many options before that date to see how the people feel.
Irv, I know you're concentrating on this story and you've been following it. What are your expectations, considering the temperature of the conversation? And the fact is, we did not participate in the consultation. I know that you interviewed Professor Antoine. What are the options for Trinidad and Tobago at CARICOM? And do you think we're going to abstain?
That's an interesting question, and I think more or less Hema is a wait-and-see approach. Of course, our government does not always tend to bend towards pressure. But it's not to say that we do not have any conversation. And just to make it clear, you know, there is a joint select committee, as you know, looking into the laws that pertain to marijuana, especially. It's headed by Dr. Danisha Marber, who, you know, he's a very sober-minded academic.
And he's been very vocal on his support. I think he's been on medical use as well as the diversification on the economy. He's made his views very clear.
Exactly. He said it is a billion-dollar industry that we could certainly benefit from. So, in fact, there is money to be made. My understanding is that, just to let you know, there are business interests. They are out there, and they are very interested, and they will, when the time comes, put their money and invest in the cannabis industry. But, of course, we have to acknowledge also as a population that this marijuana trade is being done. Maybe it's just time to tax it, you know. Expectations out of this meeting, not sure Hema. It's more or less a wait-and-see approach. I would be very surprised if Trinidad and Tobago does, in fact, take a position ahead of having that conversation with the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, considering our blunders recently in our foreign policy, I don't know what the position is going to be. I do hope that we turn up to the vote.
Of course, the Prime Minister himself is there.
Well, you know, let's see how that goes. And I don't know what Dr. Rowley's position on this, but no matter what, we cannot continue to bury our heads in the sand. The conversation on cannabis and marijuana is happening globally. It's a billion-dollar industry, but taking that away and taking aside our views on what we think and our perceptions and our stereotypes of people who may smoke weed all day, in the end, there's a body of information, a growing body of knowledge in the medical industry, which is linking the use of cannabis to not only reversing the trend on diseases which were not thought to be treatable at one time, but also easing the pain of terminally ill patients. So is it not just their human right to allow them access to good, proper, first world medical care? If only on that issue alone, I think we should begin the conversation.